Hello, man. I don't know what happened starting this thing up, but it was a freaking mess.
Hello, man.
I
don't know what happened starting this thing up, but it was a freaking mess.
Okay. Okay, I got my sound and everything. I had two of me. I think I had two of me. It opened up right away, and then I reopened it because it asked me if I wanted to reopen it. And then there was just like, wait a second, there's two of me in here now, and I don't know where two of me came from because there's only one. This. Okay. Today we're going to talk about an obvious example of gynocentrism in our society. I was shocked over the weekend that nobody's seen this, and I was waiting with bated breath for someone to come on and say this. Hello, Wookie. Hello, Don. What had happened was Mike Pence had visited the immigration camps and or migrant camps, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't matter. I don't follow it that much. But as of Mgtow, I seen one obvious thing that was going on. Karen Pence went and visited the female camps, which is a new camp that was built for females. It was brand new. It's got toilets. It's got everything. She went and visited the female camp. And then sometimes in the press, they were interposing the two things at the same time and they were taking the horrors of one camp and putting it with the horrors of the other camp. But Karen Pence went and visited the female camp. And when she said what she said in the first article that they've taken down since because they've seen the stupidity of it, she said the females were sitting there eating snacks and the children were there and the females were there and they were eating snacks and they had cable TV and they had plenty of toothbrushes and they had everything. Now, Mike Pence at the opposite camp on the other side of town went and visited the male camp. In the male camp, you've all seen the pictures of the male camps. The male camps are crowded areas where men sleep on the ground next to each other and they're crowded together and there are no toilets and everything. And the obvious what they were doing, some of the press were going to the male camps and they're going, oh, look how they're treating the females. But they weren't really treating the females that way. Gynocentrism in the way our society is was exploited at that point. And when a Mgtow looks at these things, he looks at the gynocentrism and things. He looks at how the females are being treated over here and how the males are being treated over here. And these are the poorest and the weakest among our society. They have no money. They have no jobs. They have nothing. So what Mgtow looks at, we don't look at the overall what is happening down there and form political views on those things. What we do is we look at the gender dynamics and we look at how people are being treated according to gender dynamics. And we've seen an obvious example this weekend, and nobody but me. I was wait a second. There's a problem here, and the problem here is when Laura Pence went to the female camp. They had toothbrush, they had mats, they had proper bedding, they had toilets, they had things to eat. They're sitting there watching TV and eating snacks. Now, when Mike Pence went to the male camps were totally different. Ask yourself the question about gynocentrism at that point. Don't look at it as a Mgtow, don't look at the overall and what's happening there. Look at how our government treats men and how our government perceives men. You look at comparatively how they treat women. Now, we see this in other places. We see this in prison. We see this in those prison areas. The female areas are much better than the male areas. The male areas are generally crowded, and there's slaves in there. There's slaves that were put there from child support, back child support, and stuff like that for felony charges and stuff like that. The males are treated totally different than the females in prison. We can look at the addiction centers, and one of my examples were in the addiction centers, and I worked at addiction centers, and I worked at male addiction centers, and I've seen females. I never worked in a female. I would often go to the female addiction centers. where they were being treated for things. And I seen the obvious difference in the female addiction centers. The females go to these places where there's aromatherapy and spas and individual rooms, and these places aren't bad to live in. Now you go to what we call CPAC here in Ohio, and you go to those places and they're prison-like. And you wake up and a guard comes in and he takes you out of your cell. So there are obvious differences in gynocentrism, the way we treat the females in our society and the way we treat the males in our society. Now, the immigration camps, for every Mgtow, and supposedly call yourself a Mgtow and not be able to see this, and every men's rights activist out there that supposedly calls himself a Mgtow or a men's rights activist, and never seen that there was an obvious difference and there was gynocentrism on display. I found that. I would like to believe that years ago, every single one of us would have looked at that and gone, oh no, oh no. And it wasn't the oh no because of how you feel politically about this thing. It was the oh no because gynocentrism was on display right in front of your face, and most MGTOWs and MRAs didn't even catch it. And it makes me sick nowadays. It was a great example of how things in our society work. Laura Pence went and visited the camps where they had cable TV and they were eating snacks and their bedding was okay and they had proper toilets. Mike Pence went to the male camp, and that's where the overcrowding was. That's where they're treated like animals. You know why? Because in America, it's okay. It's okay to treat men like animals. And this just doesn't happen in a vacuum. This happens from the top of our society to how we treat men in our society. What makes it okay to have that sort of difference, that bar, that difference in between of human dignity and happiness? What makes it okay for the men to live in those conditions and the women to live in these conditions? Gynocentrism makes it okay. And if we let it happen at the minimal amount, the poorest people among us, we can look at this as a great example of gynocentrism, but they remove those pages right away because I think even in the press, they seen the disparity between the two camps. And it was a great example. And I thought all weekend I'm waiting with bated breath for someone to come out with a video about it so I can go, yes, I seen that. And yes, exactly. There was some differences between the way that the females were treated and the way that the males were treated. And the males were treated, and this is a zero sum. We talk about zero sum things. The males are treated that badly because money is taken from the male. It's zero sum money game. The money is taken from how you treat and given to that camp, the female camp, so the conditions are raised higher. In zero sum game, when we talk about zero sum game, you should keep that in mind, because the money is taken from the males and it is moved to the females to make the conditions better for the females, and the males still live in our society under slavery conditions, under debtor's prison conditions, under this traditional horror, this barbaric nightmare that we call America. And nobody's seen that in Mgtow. I think Mgtow has to do a deep introspection into what they believe anymore. Hello, Mgtow Mystic. Hello, Wookiee Loves Matter. Yeah, I get 4 thumbs down, because you know what happens? Because we have political Mgtows running around Mgtow doing entryism, and all they can go with their silly little stupid minds, instead of thinking about the Mgtow subject, they go in their silly little stupid minds and they go right to the political, because that's all they see. They're not real Mgtows. And we get a lot of that around here. If you're looking at that condition as a Mgtow or a men's rights activist and you don't see the obvious gynocentrism in that, then man, we got some splaining to do because we're failing in here. And that is such an obvious example. Our prison systems are such obvious examples of gynocentrism. Our addiction centers are such obvious examples of gynocentrism. The men get treated one way. It's a zero-sum game. Money gets taken from the men and moved to the females, no matter what system. And then that works its way up in society to normal people like you and me. Money gets taken from the men and it gets put over here for the woman's side. It's gynocentrism. It's okay to treat men like animals. It's okay for men to suffer and live less as long as they're doing their job, supporting the system, the whole world on their back. And that's what men's rights is about. That's what Mgtow is about. That's the basic bottom line of Mgtow. But we have half these people, more than half these people, that are out chasing dragons and being political, and they don't even see the very bottom base subject of Mgtow. When we can look over society and we see the differences, how women are treated and how men are treated. And then we can see the zero-sum game happening underneath it. That's why we teach these things, because we think that the objective truth, or at least the analytical truth, will come through for these men. But no, most of them never get it. No, most of them are never going to get it. Now go back and take a look at that. Look how the men were treated and look how the women were treated. And that should be the Mgtow subject. I don't care about the rest. I can't do nothing about the rest. I'm here for the gender dynamics. I'm here for the Mgtow. What are they here for? What is the rest of these people here for? They have no idea. They have no idea about the philosophy of Mgtow. They have no idea. No one's ever shared with them what they're supposed to be seeing, or it's so all complex in their brains and they're split cognitively that they don't have no idea what to think when they see something like that. A proper Mgtow says, well, look at what Laura Pence seen. Through her eyes, what did she see? She's seen females sitting around watching cable TV and eating snacks in places. And they said, well, we're treating them great. But on the other side, the men were being treated like animals. And then they'll take, and it's Simpson's paradox after that, they'll take that situation, and the liberal right and whoever's screaming about this, to take that situation and they'll go, they're all being treated like animals. No, they're not all being treated like animals. The men are being treated like animals. The women are being treated pretty good. It's not a Simpsons paradox situation, but as soon as it plays out in the numbers and on the press, they'll change the narrative. They'll change what you think you're seeing. And most Mgtows go, yeah, they're all being treated like animals. And they're just immigrants. You asses. The men are being treated. It's a zero-sum game. So we have the three theories of Mgtow all applied to this. And for anything to be an analytical truth, it has to at least have two of the theories involved that support it. Now I was insulted. I looked at this and I was truly insulted. But that's the society we live in. And then the other thing is they take away the children. Okay, yes. As a divorced male, I know America takes away America's father's children. It's nothing new to me that happens. I had my children taken away. I had my children held hostage. And all I had to do in that situation was pay money. I was a slave. That's the very definition of slavery, paying money to someone that working and paying money to someone that's not working and paying money. Holding up a system on your back, you're working. That's the very definition of slavery. If I don't, I go to jail. That's the very definition of debtor slavery. Two things, two facts in our Constitution where American men have no rights. And that's what we're talking about here. Men have less rights. And we see the obvious examples everywhere, but we fail to articulate these things in a fashion to get our grievances redressed. I was looking all weekend for examples of violations of constitutional rights by the MRA, and no one seems to be able to articulate it. So I'm going to have to articulate it for them. And it'll be strong, and it'll be Mgtow. And this is one of the examples I look at. Mgtow intelligence is surely depleted by about half nowadays. And maybe it's our fail. I don't think it's our failure to teach along the way. I think it's failure to learn. I think it's xenophobia. I think these men are stupid. I think they're chasing dragons. They're looking at the wrong things. They think it's political in here. They think it's some choice between Pence and Bernie Sanders. That's ridiculous because it's always about men's rights. Anytime you walk into Mgtow, it's always about men. It's never about women. It's always about how men are being treated, not what the girls are doing. You're chasing dragons. You're an idiot if you're doing that. But I'm insulted lately by the character and quality of the Mgtows I see. Because a proper Mgtow would have looked at and go, why are the men treated so much badly? Is that a zero-sum game playing out? Are you taking the money from here and moving it over there? Yes, you are. And let me tell you something else. If you want to see something, magical, you take five piles of bricks and you put it in the female camp, and you say, and you leave mortar and you leave 500 bags of cement, and you put it in a female camp. You take an equal amount of bricks and you put it in a male camp, and you put it in an area, and you put some design and you leave it there and walk away. You know what's going to happen? Within a few short months, those men are going to pick those bricks up, put them together, and build a fucking structure. Those women will stare at that bricks and go, when are the men going to build a structure? Try it. I'll bet my total existence that if you put a pile of bricks in some mortar, the men will build themselves a shower unit. Because that's what men do. We can see the gynocentrism in this stuff. About the rest, I don't give a shit. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me. But what does affect me is how men are treated in America. From the top to the bottom, you are less. You are lied to. You are not in some patriarchal situation where we run this thing. It's always for the women. It's always a zero-sum game. And it will be taken from you. And if you end up on that bottom, your life is going to suck. And I suggest as a Mgtow, you don't end up on that bottom, because they will treat you exactly like one of those immigrants. And that's the message for today. And it's a strong message, but it's a true message. And it's an analytical message. It makes sense. And it's all about men's rights. It's all about being treated equally. We talk about equality all the time. But then Simpson's paradox flips the meters. And that's what we've seen this weekend. That's all I got to say. I don't want to go on forever about this. I don't do videos much anymore. And I like to stop by once in a while and just say hello to all my friends. Hello, Orange Partisan. Hello, Wookie. Hello, Lewis. Hello, everybody that comes around and listens. most of all, thanks for coming around and thanks for being Mgtow, reasonable Mgtow. And that's it today, man. Thanks a lot for being Mgtows. Mgtows.